eli5, in modern banks money is just a number in a database, right? What stops the bank owners from just adding an amount to a saldo of an account? Banks are audited regularly, and any discrepancies will end with employees being fired and having to repay any missing funds. Checks, balances, and the fact that a bank is only valuable if it's trustworthy. It's in their own interest to keep very rigorous track of everything, and severe punishments for screwing it up. LPT, when painting the interior/exterior of your house, always wear a hat. This MF got paint on his head. I feel like this might be solving problems that are mostly exclusive to you lol. Till that most dinosaurs aren't kosher. Researchers analyzed Jewish rules to find out that a Jewish time traveler would have difficulties finding kosher meat among dinos. Sure, but Jewish law also allows you to eat whatever you need if your life depends on it, so if you magically end up back then you can go hog wild on the guys. Glad we caught that in a timely fashion. LPT, keeping fresh apples in the refrigerator can keep them fresh for months. Fun fact, the apples you buy in a grocery store have often been in storage for 6 to 12 months. Same with oranges. You can also recreate the old root cellar for apples, potatoes, onions, etc. pretty easily with closed paper bags in a cool, dark place, like a corner of the basement. eli5, how did Hernan Cortez and his conquistadors, who were in now Mexico, have enough ammunition to fight the natives while staying for years 1519 to 1521? Guns were not the main superweapons of Cortez. Steel swords/weaponry were far more important to the conquest of the Aztecs. It was with these weapons, supported by large numbers of fighters from other native tribes who had a pre-existing hatred for the Aztecs, that enabled Cortez's victory. The Spanish weren't the Aztecs' only enemies. The Aztecs went on a conquest spree and forced the conquered lands to provide thousands of human sacrifices. Because of this, a lot of the locals really didn't like the Aztecs. When Cortez attacked the Aztecs' capital, his army was about 400 Spaniards and 100,000 Native Americans. eli5, if air is made up of 78% nitrogen, our blood uses oxygen and we exhale carbon dioxide, what happens to nitrogen? Nothing. It just hangs out, taking up space. Reacting with nothing at all because of its triple bonds with itself. The nitrogen is just there. Inconsequential. We breathe it in, we breathe it out. We could live without it entirely and not notice it. Only under high pressures or sudden pressure losses does it impact us, and in both cases it's a problem. eli5, sincerely just out of curiosity, if a bank robber is caught after a die pack explodes and the money is returned, what do they do with the money? Is it cleaned or do they throw it away? They return the physical bills to the local Federal Reserve, which passes it to the Bureau of Printing and Engraving, who shreds the paper. The Federal Reserve credits the bank's account for the amount. Banks can send money back to the Treasury and have the bills replaced with new ones. You can too. If you had a stash of bills and they were burned in a fire, as long as they can find 51% off the bill and the serial number, they'll replace it. Small edit, fire or other damage, water, critters, whatever. Remember seeing on a show somewhere people sitting in a room basically doing jigsaw puzzles with a pile of water-rotted bills. eli5, why don't breasts only form when you're pregnant? Breasts are not the same thing as mammary glands. In most women with prominent breasts, most of the breast is just fat. You can have a totally functionally mammary glands with very little breast, and many women do. Breasts presumably exist as a form of sexual selection. They may have been useful because they could show potential mates that a woman is sexually mature, has healthy genes and has extra fat stores, meaning they have access to resources needed to have a successful child. Probably sexual selection. Plenty of mammals, and non-mammals for that matter, have secondary sexual characteristics that serve no known purpose except to attract the opposite sex. It makes perfect sense that our switch to walking upright could have coincided with the development of such secondary characteristics closer to our new eye level than whatever was there before. The work uniform is mandatory no matter what. Fine. Have you sued for a workman's comp case for any residual damages to your physical health? I feel like that would get closer to malicious that some of the commenters are thirsting for. Jesus Christ, I'm happy you survived that. Outranked doesn't mean out no. Great story. Good leaders learn to say hey, you know this procedure, right? Mind taking the lead? then authority and experience are clearly defined and recognized and the job gets done safely. It is nice to see that your sergeant has your back. Eli5, what exactly does the Large Hadron Collider do, and why are people so freaked out about it? It smashes atoms into each other so we can see stuff like what they are made of when they collide and break up. And other scientific stuff pointed out below. People freak out because uneducated/poorly educated. People freak out because they are ignorant of physics and heard it's going to create black holes. That's false. Fun fact. Particles from space hit atoms in the Earth's atmosphere at energies that dwarf anything the LHC could ever produce, and we are still here. The eclipse has nothing to do with anything with LHC, nor would it. The LHC itself is just one of many accelerators around the world that collides hydrogen ions together that scientists can then study the output from. To foot with accidental racism. Unless you said it like. And I know you know what I'm talking about, then you did nothing wrong here tbh. Can someone explain for a non-American what watermelons have to do with racism? Or was it finger guns? Because guns. I'm lost. To foot by falling asleep on my best friend. Jiv. There's nothing wrong with having a cuddle with your bro. Remember, it's not gay until your ding-dings touch, and then it's only 50% gay. Eli5, why did ancient Greece seem to produce so much science? The Greeks had the advantage. They had the scholars and liked to write things down. And broadly speaking, we still understand their written form through the millennia. There was a continuous arc of preservation and refinement of their records. Unfortunately, the ancient Egyptians and Persians used cuneiform, different versions, which was mostly undeciphered until relatively recent efforts, which are still ongoing. A break of a few thousand years is simply rather hard to bridge. They had enough excess wealth that they had people who could spend time figuring things out. That, and a propensity to write things down. We know how to read it, and the Romans did as well. Like and subscribe.